Welcome everyone to Dark Tank Summer. In this 6-part event, we will go over every major Dark Tank engine character within the Porterverse. What better way to start this event than with the namesake of my entire headcanon, Porter. Porter is among my top 3 favorite characters in all of Thomas. Shocker, I know. I personally find it to be underrated in a lot of ways, considering he's a whole new engine character to interact with Salty and Crakey. Quite a shame they did absolutely nothing with his character in the actual show. So much potential left untapped. Similar to Porterverse OCs, we'll go over Porter's backstory in detail, then his character traits. But we'll also be covering the model of him as well, since I have one made of him. All characters that in this series that have a model will have it covered. Without further ado, let's get into it. Porter rolled out of the Big City Locomotive Works in 1925. It was largely based off the HK Porter switchers, most notably Brooklyn Eastern District Terminal 15 and 16. He was built specifically for the Dockyard Railroad as a means of helping Puffa and Little Owl. Puffa was designed to haul small trains out of the harbor if needed, but 2 switchers were constantly needed at all times for shunting at Big City Port. This is where Porter comes into play. He will be the secondary shunter alongside Little Owl full-time, while Puffa will help out most of the time and take small freight trains out whenever needed. Porter would wear the Dockyard Railroad's livery, which consisted of all black with yellow lining and accenting. Porter didn't mind shunting in the slightest, but over time he will grow eventually bored of his life, questioning his exact purpose and the significance of it as time went on. Porter will work in the Big City Port until 1942. World War II is currently unfolding in Europe, and engines are being built and shipped over to Europe. The Big City Locomotive Works pumped out 2 S-100 tank engines for war service. However, only one of them passed its trials, and the other one was not able to be shipped over. Porter, seeing his opportunity and longing to escape his mundane life at the port, jumped at the opportunity to see a change in his life. The Dockyard Railroad agreed, since the S-100 that was failing the trials could take its place once it was repaired. And so Porter was shipped over to Europe in 1942. During his trip across the Atlantic, he would become well acquainted with the dock tank that he was being shipped over with. This S-100 was none other than Rosie. Porter and Rosie will first meet on their voyage to Europe, and both take part in the war. Porter and Rosie will go their several ways for the time being following their arrival in Europe. Porter in particular went up to handle support duties in countries like Belgium and much later France. He would bounce around Europe following the war's end to help with the reconstruction efforts. He was eventually sold to Nafra Harbor Board in 1946. By this point, Porter's paint job was all worn and newer parts were simply left with only a base coat of primer. It was admittedly sobering to see, but the very tired Porter was just glad to have some sort of peaceful life after his grueling efforts in the war. Porter would work at Nafra Harbor as the sole shunter for the longest time. It wasn't until 1973 when Porter would finally receive much needed repairs and a facelift. It was very long overdue for an overhaul, which was carried out at Croblin's Gate Locomotive Works. Porter will be fully refurbished, receiving a new boiler, buffer beams, cab, etc. During Porter's absence, the Nafra Harbor Board bought a new engine to fill in. This was none other than Salty. He would not meet Porter for a good long while, as poor old Porter was so worn out by 1973 that the overhaul would take nearly 3 years to complete. Salty had made himself at home quite comfortably in the meantime at Nafra Harbor. Porter finally returned to service in 1976, wearing a new pale green livery as well, which he finds quite nice. The same day he returned to the harbor, the events of the Season 18 episode, Away from the Sea, would unfold pretty much the same as the TV series. By the end of it, Porter and Salty will become good friends. Today, you can still find Porter living his best life, happily shunting alongside Salty at Nafra Harbor. He loves living with the Sudrian engines, and he wouldn't have it any other way. Porter is often described as a fairly laid-back sort of character, but he also has his chaotic side too. He is good friends with a lot of engines, as most of them collect their trains from the harbor. One of his closest friends is actually Rosie. They will reconnect following Rosie's arrival on the island. Porter and Rosie's dynamic is similar to Yuji and Nobara's dynamic from Jujutsu Kaisen, just a little less aggressive to each other. They are the absolute best of friends, and often cause chaos whenever they are together. Porter, naturally, is good friends with Salty, since he is the engine that he talks to the most, given that they work together. Porter is often quick to extend upon Salty's pirate stories when given the chance, usually in a very unserious way or to scare anyone who listens. Porter is also known for his handful of voice impressions he does, most notably whenever Salty or anyone is reprimanding, let's say for example Bill or Ben, Porter would casually pass by mimicking their voice in a funny way, causing everyone to laugh. Porter does tend to zone out at times, similar to Sigrid due to his ADHD. Porter often asks a lot of questions about his jobs as a result, as he wants to ensure he hears everything properly. Cranky finds this a bit annoying, but know that he's well-intentioned in the end. Porter always tries to make sure everything is done well to the best of his ability. Overall, Porter is the type of engine to match the energy of his friends, and is generally a fun engine to be around. Pretty chill overall. As for Porter's model, he was made using what I believe to be an AHM 060. I primed the body in my usual gray acrylic, and then brushed on a pale green mixture. They're just a custom mixture that is made on the paint palette. Probably should have made a bottle of this, but oh well. If I'm ever going to remake this model, I might as well just do a whole new color then too. Following this, I painted the other details in their respective colors. Black for the running board, red for the sides of the running board, side rods, and other details as well. Same with metallic colors all around. Many paint touch-ups later, Porter was done. Or so I thought. Porter would sit like this for a good year or two, as earlier in 2024, I decided to finally take a crack at giving Porter buffers. You had like dip-off parts of the front, I don't know what these are called. I snipped those off with some pliers, and then I carefully glued in the buffers into the space. Miraculously, the buffers actually fit quite snugly, so it was a perfect fit. These buffers are designed by Noah. After some paint touch-ups after the gluing, Porter is now officially complete. I am way happy with the model now, given that these buffers. Just feels so right, you know? And that was Porter in his namesake universe. So that was Doc Tank Summer Episode 1. I had a blast writing this episode, and I was finally able to properly cover my AU's namesake. Let me know what you all think of this miniseries. I would love to hear your feedback. Also, I have a great update to share with you all now. After almost 4 months of staying in a different room upstairs, I am now finally able to move back into my original room, and I was able to just finish moving in as recording this yesterday. I am so glad to finally be back in here. So much more space. And now I'm able to actually make proper Porter vs. Workbench videos too. So once this Doc Tank Summer event wraps up, you have my word, I will try to prioritize Porter vs. Workbench and get an episode out as soon as possible. I'm so glad to have my proper setup back. I cannot wait to show you all what I have in stock for models. Thank you all very much for watching this episode of Doc Tank Summer, and I will see you all same time next week.